salespeople aren't actually taking risks because they have a job. Like, they're being paid by someone else, and all the risk is really on that company if they don't perform. What's the risk for a sales rep? You get fired and then you go get another sales job somewhere else and you do it all over again. Yeah, that's risky, but like in the grand scheme of things, not as much as like putting your house on the line to get a loan to like launch a business. So
much for tuning in to another episode here. We got a super special guest for you. We'll be speaking to a coach, a mentor, a sales trainer, the one and only Sales Rebellion, Mr. Jack Wilson. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jack. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to hear a little bit more about what started the Sales Rebellion, your expertise, and how sales reps can be different out there. But thanks so much, man. How's everything been? I know it's like 2021 here, January 13th, so about halfway through the first month. How's everything looking on your end?
That's like a loaded question now. Like it never used to be like, how has your year been? And it went from like 2019 to 2021 real quick for everybody. But things are going really well. A lot of new journeys for me. I recently made a big transition from working full-time for companies to going off on my own and being a fractional VP of sales for startups and emerging companies. And then also doing one-to-one sales coaching really full-time. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity to share kind of some of my insights and thoughts with your listeners in the sales world.
Awesome, man. I guess for anyone anyone out there who may not be familiar with what the Sales Rebellion is, obviously you guys got like a really sweet logo, very like gamified and futuristic. What is the Sales Rebellion?
Man, you're full of the loaded questions. First of all, if you don't know what the Sales Rebellion is, then you haven't been on LinkedIn for very long and you've been living under a sales rock. The Sales Rebellion, it's really a movement. It was started by our leader, Dale Dupree, who for a long time was in a sales career in one of the most difficult fields of sales. He was selling printers, copiers, door to door in the streets, full cycle field sales. And when he was in that career, he realized that sales professionals have a real bad rap. There's a lot of negative connotations. And to be honest with you, the sales world, we earned it over the years. So what Dale started doing in his sales walk was trying to change that, trying to be the best version of a human he could be and transcending the role of sales and taking that humanity into the role, creating relationships, creating experiences that both sales reps and the customers appreciated and wanted to be a part of. And Dale's been talking about this for a long time. And Dale and I actually met on LinkedIn because of him creating such great content and putting it out there for the world. And when I saw his message, it resonated with me because I came from sort of a similar background where I sold in the payroll world, where you would think selling payroll and benefits in HR would be this, like polished profession where you really care about people. But in all honesty, there's a lot of corners cut. There's a lot of nasty practices that go on. So for a while, I've been screaming for something better, for a way to bring sales back to the noble career that honestly it should be and it is. So in short, the rebellion is a movement to do that. It's to educate people on what it means to be a better human within a sales walk, to train them on the tools to be as, if not more effective while doing so. And in so doing, changing the game.
Looking at the website right here, like the principles of a rebel warrior, we got serve others, tell stories, cause impact, create wonder, know robots, and be vulnerable. I guess like when you're working with like individual reps or sales organizations, like what is like the main message that you're trying to get across? Or maybe it's a couple of messages, but like at its core, like what does it mean to be like a rebel warrior?
Well, I'll kind of take you on a bit of a journey, really. It starts with understanding your roots as a sales professional. So, what are the reasons why you do what you do? And a big part of that is service, sales through servant leadership, making sure that you're taking a problem-centric approach to delivering things to customers that they actually need. You're promising expectations that you can live up to, and finding out your story as an individual seller and developing that really into your reason. So by understanding the roots of who you are as a person and as a seller, developing a reason and a narrative that you can then bring your buyer along with that journey. And then when you do that, you create experiences. So we hear a lot about bringing back personal into sales. And there's a big difference to me between personal and personalization. I just wrote a post about this a couple of weeks ago, where personalization is like, I could put your name, Mateo, on a shirt, boom, it's personalized. But it's not very personal if it doesn't mean anything to you. So in sales, we have all sorts of tools at our disposal, whether it's getting online and doing some homework or actually just engaging in a genuine conversation about the person across the table or through the Zoom from you to figure out more about them. What drives them? What are the causes in their life? What do they believe in and what are they after? And then in your sales walk, transferring that enthusiasm by understanding what it is that they're looking to achieve and helping them to do that.
That's awesome, man. I know that you mentioned that you do a lot of work with early stage startups, kind of like a VP of sales for hire. It's kind of how you have it on your LinkedIn. And you mentioned that, like, you know, your goal with this sort of like role, or the role that you provide, is like kind of helping get in front of problems for sales organizations before they kind of evolve into like these larger problems down the line. Like, from your experience, like, what are some common challenges that you see in maybe like some early stage startups? Obviously, no fault to their own. They're growing and companies that are learning, but just any insight from you that you've seen from very like early stage organizations or companies on the sales front?
Yeah, I think one of the early ones that I've seen a lot is it's really a mindset about sales. So a lot of the companies I've worked with are like technology companies, marketing companies, and smaller firms where it's a founder owner that oftentimes is doing the sales. So they are the face of the company because they understand the product because they brought it to market. And what happens is when they decide I need a sales team, they're not happy with the results because they think no one can explain this product like me because it's mine. No one can actually represent my company as well as I could. And then what happens is the first rep that they hire is automatically set up for failure because the expectations are just all out of whack. But in reality, the reasons that rep typically fails, and it's within like 6 to 12 months, is because that owner founder didn't do a good job codifying what it means to buy their product, what the value proposition is. They didn't create resources for their reps, or they didn't create a system or a process for that rep to go then be successful. And another part of that too is having the right tools. I think some small businesses think, hey, if I buy all this cool tech stack, they'll have all the tools they need. Why aren't they successful if they have the tools? Well, just because you have the tools, you still need a blueprint or a framework for how to use them and how to execute on them regularly in order to achieve those goals. So I think those are really some of the fundamental issues I see these emerging companies have. Setting the reps up for success, onboard them really well, train them even better, and then support them with the resources and the process for them to go out and get your definition of success.
I guess, like, have you noticed any new trends as far as like the selling world and this new like digital world? Obviously, like 2020 forced us to kind of consume more digital, be on Zooms more often like this. And I see that you post pretty often here on LinkedIn. Like, I guess, how does, just any trends that you've noticed as far as just like the way we can connect with, our customers and our prospects. And like you said, just really be personal in that sense.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like, I love the question because trends are dangerous because like you can be a trend chaser. And one of the things that I think is actually dangerous about like the new world of LinkedIn is like, there's all these new things coming at you, right? Like, oh, look, something shiny. I could try that. Like right now, as we record this, like Clubhouse is like blowing up and everyone's like, are you in? Yeah. Did you get an invite? Like, and like, all right, cool. Like I get it. It's new, but like before you dive into something and start spending a ton of time, you really have to evaluate like why. What is my intention for using it? What am I looking to get out of it? What is my time spend going to be putting into that? And then how can I measure how successful it really is for me? So like the trend thing is scary because you can get caught up in a lot of that. But for me to answer the direct question, I think really the trend of authenticity, which I apologize for all the people that still think it's a buzzword. It sucks to be you because it's a buzzword because people are using it wrong. But the trend of authenticity is people being themselves more in a sales walk. So approaching your prospects with not a script or a line or a technique or a trick, but just really communicating them one-to-one and trying to get down to the basis of understanding what they need. And the ways to do that are so much easier now because we have more access to our prospects because they do live in places like LinkedIn. And for me, I think the most important trend with LinkedIn is you hear the term like social selling a lot. And I think people, they believe that social selling is, I have a personal brand, I post a ton, people will come to me. Or you see a lot of the connect and pitch. Like, I'm just gonna blast out my ideal client and like connect and pitch them. That's not social selling. To me, the real trend doing social selling right is I create a brand that it opens an environment for the people that I care to connect with to come in and to get value. So I should be providing something that they want as regularly as I can, comfortably, to keep them engaged. I should just be giving away value, making a ton of deposits. But then when I see people engage, it's up to me to go return the favor, but to do so in a personal manner. So what I mean by that is I might see somebody like or comment on a post that I'm a second or third degree connection with. Well, now it's my job, if I'm going to social sell, to find a reason to connect with them. That's not just to sell them. So do my homework, find out what they might be interested in. You know, what kind of other content that they've shared that perhaps I've got an opinion about that we can open up a really interesting dialogue about. And then after and only after I've opened a genuine dialogue and made a connection, do I start to approach the subject of making an ask or trying to get a meeting. And I think that's what social sales really is, using the people that are engaged with you to find out who you can connect with on a deeper level and then ultimately play the long game to connect with for a sale.
Interesting. So just really focusing on like your community and how you can add value to that community and kind of the fruits of that labor is really where you find your success.
Yeah. And like, I'll give you a tangible example. So I have a series on LinkedIn that I call Ikigai Friday. So I believe heavily in the concept of Ikigai, which is a Japanese principle, which roughly translates to a reason for being. And what I do with Ikigai Friday is every Friday, I actually show a card from an Ikigai deck that was developed by Limitless Institute and a partner, Nahal Ahmed, that I work with. And the card has a prompt and it gives you a concept and it walks you through some exercises to do some self-discovery. What happens is people will react with that. They'll ask me questions or they'll like it. And in last Friday, somebody who I'd never met before just liked the post. So I reached out and I said, hey, I appreciate the engagement on Ikigai. Are you familiar with the concept? And that person's like, no, I never heard of it. Cool, I'd love to help walk you through it and teach you more if you're interested. I'm not trying to sell them. I get on a Zoom call, we schedule it a week later, and I literally just teach them what Ikigai is. Sure, I coach it. I have lessons and training and one-to-one programs where I can help people utilize it to change their life. Did I ever make an ask to this person? No, and I shouldn't. Because if I did a good enough job explaining it, and it's something that they genuinely need, they're actually going to ask me, or it's going to come up in conversation naturally. And that's what I think people miss out on is they're not patient enough to build the value, to build the want. Sales is like dating, man. Like you don't go out with a new person that you just met and like go right for it. Like you got to get to know them a little bit. You got to break down barriers. You got to get comfortable with each other. It takes 2-3 dates before you're making any major moves, and sales can be the same way, and that's okay to take your time.
How are you able to cultivate this patience? Because I feel like most sales reps, they're trained to like get something now, get something today, whereas you are really playing the long game and you're being very strategic about how you like open connections and meet people. How do you go from like, I need to book 5 meetings today, SDR mindset, to like really the long game?
You know, it's hard to just give that answer and expect people to take it at face value, because for me, it took experiencing success despite the lack of insert here, right? So when I was in banking, for example, I went through a 6-month period where I didn't have a manager. And it was crazy because I went from there being a period of time where these expectations that were put on me, I thought were ridiculous. They were like, you need to have 12 face-to-face meetings a week. Look, that's ridiculous. Like, I don't care what industry you're in. If you're booking 12 meetings a week, one of two things is going to happen. A, you're going to sell every opportunity in like a really short period of time and have to go somewhere else to do something else. Or B, you're booking meetings with people that absolutely just don't want it. You're just forcing meetings down people's throats. So that goal, I always knew it was ridiculous, but I was still trying. Well, then my manager left and I went, well, no one's going to yell at me if I don't have 12 meetings, but I need to get paid. I need to hit numbers so I can put food on my table. So I'm going to go out and get as many as I can. And that ended up being 4 meetings a week. So think about that difference, like 4 versus 12 is like
tremendous
percentage wise, I'm not even close, right? If I have a manager, I'm getting fired just for lack of activity. But after a couple weeks in of doing this, I went to number 1 within the company. I finished number 4 that year. And then coming out the next year, I started off at number 1 and I stayed at number 1 all year. I left the company in September. I still finished 3rd, even though I didn't work there for the entire 4th quarter. But it was because instead of trying to do more and filling my effort with just BS, I was hyper-focused on being really effective and spending my time where I knew I could be successful. So sometimes it takes bucking the system, dare I say, being a rebel, to show that you can do it better. The hard part about that is I'm not saying to go out tomorrow and just like stop doing what's expected of you. You just can't do that because you have to keep your job. So what it takes is just do what's expected of you. And then when you've got your bases covered, now you get to play. Now you get to experiment with what's going to work for you better. And once you start getting results for yourself and you can show that body of work, leadership, good coaching, good managers will actually give you space to do that, to create. So it took me going through that, realizing that, you know, I could make my own path and be successful.
So what led to like that more of that like high quality, lower volume? Like what was kind of like the secret sauce there to like find that? Because at the end of the day, like what really is important? Is it that volume or is it that quality? Or is it both?
I think one of the things, well, I think there's a formula. I think sales is, and I've heard this said by thousands of people that I never give the right credit to because I don't even know who made it. But I think sales is activity plus effectiveness equals results. And you can pull either or both of those levers in all sorts of different ratios. So some people think sales is a numbers game and they're like, hey, if I make 100 dials and I convert it 4% and that hits my numbers, I'm good. Other people are like, I just don't have that grind in me. I need to pull the activity level down, which means I need to be way better. I need to convert at a better ratio. In my opinion, if you do it right, when you first come in, your activity is naturally going to be higher. You got to build the pipe while you're starting to learn and get more effective. And there needs to be sort of like a moment where you cross this threshold of like, I get it. I get my customers' problems. I understand the language they speak. And I know how to paint a picture and tell a story to convey that information to them. So now that I'm hyper effective, I can tone down the activity a little bit. So it takes a little bit of a journey sometimes to figure out. You have to hone your craft. I think if you're just starting out in sales, no matter the role, you need to identify the specific activities that are going to make you better and get good at those. So, you know, if you're an SDR and it's just about prospecting, get good at how to have a conversation, how to open doors, how to use multi-threaded outreach attempts to catch and maintain your prospect's attention. Go out on the internet, go out on LinkedIn, find the people who you think do it best and just emulate them. My outreach method is a lot of Josh Braun and a little bit of John Barrows, and I give credit to them openly.
Nice.
I didn't steal it. They gave it away. They wanted to educate the world of sales, and it works. So like, go find the people that you think do it well, practice it, put it into play, and measure how good you are at it, and then do it over and over and over again if it works.
Yeah, John Barrows definitely always posting a bunch of great content for free too, which is pretty amazing.
Honestly, free is the
Jack,
way.
I know that
give it away.
Seriously, right? I mean, like you said, kind of going back to this, I know that you kind of alluded to earlier, like learning sales can help you become a better marketer, and learning marketing will help you become better at sales. Like walk us through that. Like, how does one really affect the other? And like, can you be good at both?
I think they each have aspects of one another built into them, but they are still very much different, right? And they should play well together in the sandbox, and they can lend to each other, which is why I think you're seeing like this big merger in large organizations between the two. But when you think about like what marketing really is, marketing is really like the neuroscience of understanding what gets people's attention. And like, if you've heard the classic AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, I think marketing is more of the aid. I think it's the attention, the interest, and the desire. And I think sales is more of the action side of that. So like an inbound funnel obviously can drive people to take action, but sometimes you have a complex product or service that needs a human to finish the last leg. But just because you've already got those people interested, you can't lose it. So you still need to understand what got their attention, what made them interested, and how to curate desire within your prospect. So I think like understanding the neuroscience of how to catch people's eye, but how to go a level deeper, not just catch their attention, but generate genuine interest and curiosity in them, can never hurt you in sales.
Do you notice any, like where do the challenges arise between sales and marketing, or where do you see a lot of the disconnect between the two?
I think a lot of that honestly comes from how those two teams are goaled, and you're seeing that evolve really quickly. I think one of the coolest companies that I've heard of doing it is Alice. It's a company that does personalized gifting at scale for sales organizations. And what their approach is, instead of like a marketing qualified lead, it's like a marketing qualified account. And the way they look at that is, so like a lead doesn't just mean like, yes, they're ready to buy. A marketing qualified account says, hey, these are someone we want to spend our time on prospecting to try to get across the threshold. So looking at intent data, looking at demographics and comparing all those things together, and then handing it over sales, where sales now has a much warmer opportunity to tackle it. One of the challenges I think is like the way marketers function inherently is more passive, and marketers are going to kill me when they hear this. I love it. I can't wait. In my humble opinion, I think marketing is more passive, where you're doing those attention grabbing things in order to draw people to you. And it's on the prospect to take a lot of that action, where sales is more, I'm trying to drive you to that action from a much more one-to-one personal sort of like approach. So like, it's almost like, this is a terrible analogy. It's almost like marketing is the professor in front of a giant auditorium and classroom disseminating knowledge, where sales is the coach, one-to-one, like trying to hold the hand, the tutor. Yeah. That's kind of the way I picture it.
Interesting. Well, Jack, this has been really awesome, man. I'm really inspired just by like your desire and drive to like want to do your own thing. Obviously, like being in sales, we really learn a lot of skills that prepare anyone to be an entrepreneur, kind of take on their own venture. Like, did you always know you wanted to get into entrepreneurship? And how do you feel like all of the business development and grunty sales work like prepared you to like, be ready to take on your own
I kind of did a bell curve. When I went to college, right out of high school, I went to Florida State, and I still bleed garnet and gold, and I didn't do anything there. Like, I left with like a 1.16 GPA because I just had too much fun, made a ton of friends. Like, I worried about like social life instead of school. When I came home from that, I went to a community college and had to start like taking it seriously, and I learned business. And I was like, I could do this. Like, I could just go start my own business. So actually a friend of mine and I went out and did that. Like, we jumped into a business right out of college. So I actually started as an entrepreneur. And then I went, this sucks. This is way too much work. I don't want to do that at all. And there's so much risk. And it actually used to be a sales rep used to come into my coffee shop all the time. And I would watch her like order lunch for clients and like hang out in my coffee shop. And I'm like, man, I want that life. How do I do that? And so I went in and I got into sales. And I think as much as sales prepares you to be gritty, I think there's actually a false sort of like opinion that salespeople have a high risk tolerance. I actually don't think they do. And I just went through a stint selling franchises where we were targeting sales professionals to sell to. And the conversations I had, I realized that salespeople aren't actually taking risks because they have a job. Like, you know, they're being paid by someone else, and all the risk is really on that company if they don't perform. What's the risk for a sales rep? You get fired and then you go get another sales job somewhere else and you do it all over again. Yeah, that's risky, but like in the grand scheme of things, not as much as like putting your house on the line to get a loan to like launch a business. So what got me back into it was sort of what we talked about. Like I realized that being successful for myself was something I always thought I could do. So I think everybody gets in a job and they're like, they look at their boss and like, I could do that better. I could do that better. Well, I finally get the chance to prove it. And I went and I did. And I was like, man, I can do it better. Let's do it again. And let's make sure it's not a flash in the pan. And once I had developed that confidence that I could do it, it finally gave me the inertia I needed to just say, I don't have to rely on that job for security. I could go do it myself. I could prove it. So here I am, proving it. And it, you know, it hasn't been too long so far, but like knock on wood, it's all good so far.
That's inspiring, man. Do you have any advice for like any SDRs or sales reps that like really do want to do like actually are down to take risks and want to like translate all of the skills that they learned in their whatever professional role and like do their own thing? Like, do you have any advice for them?
I do. And it's multifaceted, right? So I think number one is if you want to do that, it's difficult. And it's difficult for what we think are different reasons than our job is difficult. So for starters, if you're an SDR and you want to just be an AE, or, you know, that's usually the first jump, get good at what you do so well and so deep that you're a master at what you do now. Not because it takes being a master SDR to be an AE, but because it takes understanding what it takes to become a master, to be good at those other things. So if you can learn the skill of learning and application, that is going to prepare you for whatever you want to do. So seek knowledge, find knowledge, and then use it. Put it to use, get dirty with it, and internalize it as fast as you can. And once you're in a place that you're like, it doesn't matter what job I have, I'll figure it out and I'll execute it really damn well. That's when you know you can go and do whatever.
That's awesome, Jack. Really appreciate it, man. For someone like myself who really wants to go down that avenue, I couldn't agree with you more, man. For anyone listening out there that was like intrigued by our conversation here and just wants to pick your brain or join the rebellion and just learn a little bit more from you, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, pick up a pitchfork, grab a torch and light it. And you can email me at jack@thesalesrebellion.com, or you can just find me on LinkedIn. I think it's /Jack D. Wilson. And I'm pretty available. I try to get back to everybody within 24 hours, but happy to connect. Look, even if they don't want to join the rebellion, even if they don't want to coach, if you just want to commune and create some fellowship and just talk sales, like I'm always down for that too. Sometimes it's funny, like there's like always this call to action because we're salespeople. Like just do it and I'm totally cool with it.
Just connect.
Yeah.
Jack, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your insight here, and it's awesome to see a fellow salesperson be able to like take the skills that they learn to like do their own thing, but at the same time kind of give back to the ecosystem and just provide value to their communities, man. So really appreciate your time today, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for the platform, and anything I could do to be helpful to you with the show, with your career, with your life, always here for you, man.